Welcome to another episode of Football Tailgaters, where we talk everything about the NFL, including bets. In today's episode, as usual, I have here with me Yams, the Jets fan, and Andy, the unbiased football fan, and me, Aaron, the Cowboys fan. Today, we have something new that we're trying out today called News Drill, where I go and ask questions. I go around, and each of us get 1 minute to give our thoughts on the multiple topics we're going to be talking about. And then after that, we'll rank the NFC East division with the Cowboys, Commanders, Giants, and Eagles. All right, so are you guys ready? I'm going to put up a timer for 1 minute. And then I'm going to ask you questions. And I think to make it a little bit more fun, I'm just going to ask random ones. Like, not in order, I guess. Because I set them in an order, but I'll just do random ones. So I'm going to start with the Yams, and then I'm going to go with Andy, and then it'll be me.
Let's do it.
Okay. We're going to start. So after I ask the question, that's when I'm going to start the timer, so no pressure. Okay, so we'll start with Cooper Kupp getting extended. Yams, go.
Well, I say super bound. I'm just kidding. I don't think there's even a team that has gone back to back to their Super Bowl. The last team that has done that, at least to make an appearance, was the Patriots in 2004. So Cooper Kupp will help the Rams make another Super Bowl appearance, at least an appearance, which I believe that could happen. So I think they're trying to run it back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to just go for it, Aaron, or do you want me to go?
No, go for it. You had go for it.
Okay. So, I mean, he has signed a 3-year, $80,100,000 contract with the Los Angeles Rams, including a $20 million signing bonus. $75 million of that is guaranteed, and an average annual salary of $26.7 million. So that's awesome for him. So great job. He does deserve it. All I can say on my end for this is just to get fantasy fans excited. For him, he should be top 3 wide receivers taken in fantasy this year. So, I mean, that's an easy selection. So good for him.
Okay.
And I think it does elevate them to go back to the Super Bowl. It can happen. I wouldn't be surprised.
All right. Well, it's gonna be awesome for Cooper Kupp. Great for him. Like you said, Andy, it's fantastic. That fantasy is gonna look amazing for him again. I think, especially with Robinson added. They lost. What's his name? Odell Beckham, but that's fine. Completely fine. And then, they still got a really good defense. It's going to be just another typical great year for Cooper Kupp. I think he's going to have he's just at his peak right now, and he's not going down anytime soon, I think. So for the next one, we're going to skip over to, I guess, the Rams defense. We're going to start talking about with Aaron Donald becoming the highest paid non-quarterback. Yams, go first.
Like I said in the Cooper Kupp thing, and I think they're just trying to run it back. They can do it again, and the GM sees that the potential for this team is here. They're at their highest point. Yeah, Odell Beckham left, but they got Allen Robinson. So back to my previous comment about Cooper Kupp, they will make a Super Bowl appearance. I see the Rams running it back with Aaron Donald, especially with Aaron Donald being signed for the defense, because he was the one that did help the team win the Super Bowl against the Bengals.
Andy, go.
Yeah, I agree. This is just adding to it that they're just going it all, putting their chips all in to get back to the Super Bowl again. And they have a really good shot again because how the NFC is less competitive than the AFC. I guess I would put that either it's the Packers or the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going to be their competition just because of Aaron Rodgers and, Tom Brady. But besides that, they have a really good shot. They're solidifying their weapons at offense and their defense. So Aaron Donald signed a 3-year, $95 million contract with the Rams, including a $25 million signing bonus, which is $95 million guaranteed, with an average annual salary of 31.6. Well deserved to be the highest paid defensive player. So kudos to them, and it'll be exciting to see the Rams again.
Okay. I think, good again for Aaron Donald. That's crazy that he became the highest paid non-quarterback. Just insane to think about. The only thing is that, they lost Von Miller. I think if I had to compare from the defense and offense, I think the Rams are going to have better production with the offense. I'm not going to say like the defense is terrible or anything. They got a decent secondary. It's just the defensive line. It's mainly going to be Aaron Donald running the show, and then it's going to be Jalen Ramsey following up. But it's like I said, offense just seems like it's going to have a better year, in my opinion, than the defense. But good on Aaron Donald for getting that. So we'll move on to the next one. Saquon Barkley said he feels like his old self. Yams, go first.
He feels like his old self. I guess good for him if that's the case. I don't know. We all have to see it. It's probably arguably that he's the best player on that team, right? So he might stand out. It's just going to be easy for him to stand out. It's just how, with the New York Jets, Jamal Adams, you're a good player on a bad team. So that might be the case. We all could be fooled about his feeling like his old self, because he is a good player. But again, he's also going to be the best player on a bad team.
Okay, Andy.
Is he the best player? That was 2018 when he got drafted. He did have a monster rookie year. He had 11 touchdowns rushing and 4 touchdowns receiving. I believe in yardage, he did go to 1,300 yards. But after that, on 2019, he did go just a little tiny bit over 1,000 yards at 1,003 total, and had only 6 touchdowns rushing with 2 touchdowns receiving. And then 2020, he got hurt, so no rushing touchdowns and 0 receiving. And then 2021, he only had 2 rushing touchdowns with 593 total yards and receiving 2 touchdowns. So I don't even know if he's the best player. Unfortunately, with running backs, I do feel for them, but they get hurt, and it's not the same once they come back, especially on a horrific injury like the one that he had. So if he doesn't do well this year, it might be a question mark for him to keep playing for the Giants or somebody else.
Okay. I think that, it's just, we'll believe it when we see it type of situation for him. He did miss a lot of time. Sucks that he really got like a horrible injury in 2020. But, he was a great running back when he had those the first 2 years. So I have to wait, because the problem is with the Giants, it's just they just have so many holes that they have to fill up. Again, they have so many gaps that it's just a whole mess. They have to work on that offensive line, and they're trying to do that. The defense isn't great. They don't have that many offensive weapons. I think I would probably say that he is probably the best player on that team, but based on only past, on the history of them. Because, I'm not going to put Daniel Jones at the top, or I can't think of anyone right at the top of my head. So we'll just have to wait and see what he can do this upcoming season. All right. So for Deshaun Watson and his ongoing lawsuit case going on, he's got 24th accusation. Yams, go first.
Man, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of the whole Deshaun Watson stuff. It's a big mess. It's garbage. My quick thought is, it was nice having Deshaun Watson around. I don't know if we'll ever see him again. I don't know if he'll ever get out of this mess. And now the Browns are part of this mess. So now the Browns are in a big time gutter with them. And it doesn't seem like he learns his I don't think he seems to learn. If you go and, check Twitter a bit, he did. He commented on P. Diddy's picture where P. Diddy was getting massaged by some masseuse, and he commented on that. So he doesn't learn. He has an issue. He has a problem.
What was the comment?
he put some googly eyes emojis.
All right.
Andy?
Yeah, it's just this situation with Deshaun Watson keeps just getting deeper and deeper. And the Browns, unfortunately for their fans, because I do like their fans, they're really hardcore and they're really passionate about their team. But it's just the same situation of the troubles that the Browns have. They already broke the relationship with Baker Mayfield, and they got this quarterback who even knows when he's going to be playing. I mean, it's just more information is coming out, and the less that we don't have even football like going on, the more like the eyes are going to be on this situation because the media needs something to talk about. So it's just hard for I don't know to wait this long. Right now I'm starting to think it's going to be the whole year that he's not going to be playing. So we shall see.
I think this is definitely a big loss, for the Browns. I think they should be very worried about the situation, and they're gonna start rethinking like, what do we do? Why do we do this again? It just keeps getting worse for them. They're getting backed up into a corner. It's not looking good for them. I think this situation could be really bad for Watson. Of course, I think he's gonna end up getting suspended this year for sure. I might even go as far as to say like he might get suspended for at least half of the season. This situation is just not helping out at all for him trying to play. And, with the problem with Baker Mayfield, it's just Browns are just somehow doing Browns things. So terrible for them. But, they tried something risky. Good on them because they got to try and do something and start being relevant a little bit more because, they're only relevant because they're bad. But yeah. All right. So we'll go on to the next one. We'll go on with Jason Garret replaces Drew Brees on Sunday Night Football. Yams, go first.
Well, let's see if this is better. I know Drew Brees there was rumors that he was not very good at the job. He seemed pretty awkward, wasn't fit for TV or commenting for the game. So we'll see. Jason Garret might be less awkward. I don't know. I know from watching Hard Knocks, he was well spoken. He took the room. They listened to him. They respected him. But again, that was him as a head coach. Another thing is, well, if you work for the Cowboys, if you played for the Cowboys, you probably have a job to comment. So you have Aikman, Romo, Witten, who's out now, I believe. Was it Irvin? Is that his name?
Michael
Irvin. And now Jason Garret. So I can say, if you played for the Cowboys or worked for the Cowboys, you probably have a job.
You forgot Jimmy Johnson.
And Jimmy Johnson.
Yep, that's a big one.
So working for the Cowboys opens doors.
Andy?
I mean, we'll see. I mean, yeah, I agree that Drew Brees sounded a little monotone. I do think it kind of sucks when you only had 1 year and maybe you didn't have too much to practice or you're trying to get it better. Trying to be better. I know we saw the same thing with Jason Wynn with Monday Night Football. It didn't sound that great, and then after that year he went back and played for the Las Vegas Raiders. So I really hope that Jason Garret brings into a little bit more of the talking about the play calling, the plan, or how coaches see how to defend certain type of offenses or defenses, because we've been seeing Tony Dungy explain it with Sunday Night Football for it feels like the last 20 years, even though it hasn't been the 20 years, but it does feel that way. It's been there for a long time. So it's going to be nice to have a nice new perspective from another head coach. I know Jason Garret didn't ever win a Super Bowl, but he has been, he did have some success as a coordinator with the Cowboys, not as a head coach. And I know that we all know how he went with the New York Giants. He just got let go. So hopefully it does. I'm always interested, even with coaches that didn't have so much success. I'm a big Eric Mangini fan. I love how he explains how to strategies.
You're going 1 minute and a half. Too much. It's too much.
I'm sorry. I just got too passionate for this one, but yeah. Hopefully
how
he does
can you get
great.
passionate? All right. My turn. How can you get passionate about Jason Garret, right? But I think somehow this is going to work out for him. I thought Drew Brees was fine, but whatever. I think, like you said, Andy, it's going to be very interesting to see his perspective on it. I was making that joke that he might be a very good audience member. You were saying, he's just going to be clapping away at those halftime highlights. Whatever it is. I think he's going to be actually really great. Like, joking aside, I don't know, that I just have this hunch that even though he wasn't that great of a coach, he has some potential that maybe on TV he could be great. Tony Romo, it was just kind of like people were having mixed thoughts, and he ended up being, right now he's one of the best commentators out there easily. So I think,
if not the best one,
yeah. So there's just something about Jason Garrett that I think he has potential to be good on screen. But yeah, and then last one, Hunter Renfrow, guys, he got extended in the Las Vegas Raiders. Yams, you go first.
Well, good for him. He got a 2-year extension. That's good for Las Vegas, and he also gets to work alongside with Davante Adams, which is huge, and Darren Waller, which is huge as well. So that team is, he's a key piece to the Las Vegas receiving core. He was a 5th round in 2019, and he ended up being one of the most consistent receivers on that team. So good for him. With Josh McDaniels being the coach, we'll see how the new team, we'll see how his print will be on this new team. Now, I do know that it's good for Derek Carr, who's able to continue working with Renfrow. They already have that chemistry built together. So that's one less wide receiver he needs to worry about. He does have some chemistry with Davante Adams, which was in Fresno State. They have some chemistry there, but we'll see how it is now with, new coach. That always changes some things. So, but good for him.
Andy?
Fantasy. This guy's going to be a monster in fantasy next year. I mean, if you look at his last year, he had 9 touchdowns with 1,038 yards, and he recorded 103 catches. So just imagine that for if you're in a PPR league, how many points that guy gave you. So if you get him like in the, I don't know, in the 2nd round or 3rd round, I think you got a solid wide receiver there. It's all about points and stuff. And now with the addition of Davante Adams there, it's just going to open up more for him to be catching the balls. And not only that, they did try last year to even do some rushing attempts with him. And it wasn't that successful, but I mean, maybe they're going to keep trying. And that just helps you more in the fantasy. He had 3 rushes, only for 3 yards. But I mean, and the longest that he had was 5 yards. So, I mean, you never know. I mean, they might look at the ability for him to keep doing that, but he had a monster year. And if you look at his numbers from 2019 to 2021, it just kept on growing and growing. So, I mean, fantasy.
I completely agree with that. I'll stack up on that with the whole fantasy situation. I think the Raiders fans, or I guess the fantasy fans, for just picking up wide receivers, more options, are just as excited as the Las Vegas Raiders. I think that it's a good idea that you bring up that they might just experiment more with him and maybe use him kind of like how Deebo Samuel is kind of used. Who knows? Maybe not. We'll have to see. I mean, they do have a solid running game, so he's just a little another asset that can help take off, I guess, the pressure that Davante Adams is going to have, the usual. I think that the wide receiver core is a lot better than what was in Green Bay. So that's definitely going to be an improvement overall. It is a different quarterback, whatever. But I'm just saying, like, the wide receiver core is just better. It's like a better fit in Davante Adams than it was with the Green Bay Packers, because I felt like he had to carry more load in the Green Bay Packers than over here with the Raiders. I don't know. We might see a decrease in numbers or not. Who knows? We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, that was the last one. How'd you guys feel? Was it good?
Yeah, I need more practice.
Yeah, no, but it was good. It's good.
Yeah, we'll keep this.
Nice. Cool. All right. So now we're going to slow down a little bit, change up the pace, and we're going to move on over to, I guess, the second question. We're just going to put all those as one question. I don't know. We're going to talk about the NFC East division. The Cowboys, Commanders, Giants, and Eagles. We're going to rank them who's going to the playoffs, who isn't. We'll start with Yams.
Yeah. So I have the Cowboys going to the playoffs. They have the same system under Kellen Moore, calling the plays. It'll be interesting to see how he works with the CeeDee Lamb being number one now with the wide receiver. So he needs to make plays that are creative enough so that they're able to help CeeDee Lamb succeed as number one in the schedule. Also, big shocker, they have one of the easiest schedule. I think they had like the third or fourth easiest schedule that predictable. Then also all of NFC East had the easiest schedule. I think they were all like the last four, I believe, that had the teams with the easiest schedule. Well, that's not surprising because they do play, Philadelphia twice, they play Giants twice, and they play the Commanders twice. So if they are able to win, I guess, all of them, I mean, that's 6 wins there. I see that they might split maybe with the Commanders. Philadelphia, I don't know much about how Jalen Hurts is. I just don't like him as a quarterback. So that leaves me to the Commanders. I think Commanders will sneak up also and have a playoff win. They have Ron Rivera, who's a decent coach, and that's honestly my main reason as why I have them as number 2 is because I think Ron Rivera is a good coach. Carson Wentz, I've always thought he was good, but just the last year I started to kind of have some doubts in Carson Wentz because how he played and how they needed him just to step up on that last game against the Jaguars, and he just couldn't. Also, he also had like problems with I'm not sure if he's unvaccinated or vaccinated, but somehow he couldn't play games because of it. I'm not too sure. So last year, hopefully he corrects it this year. This is definitely his last year to prove that he can be a franchise quarterback in the NFL. And with the head coach and Ron Rivera, I do see that they can make this work together. I do have a bold prediction here. 10 wins and they make a playoff. I like the team. The good players I see: Antonio Gibson, Carson Wentz, McLaurin. On the defensive side, we have Chase Young. So I think they have a good team. And if it doesn't work out with Carson Wentz and they need a quarterback, they have a really good team. That's all they need is a quarterback. So coming to the third, which is the Eagles, and the only reason why I put them, well, along with many other things, of course, I don't trust the quarterback, Jalen Hurts. I think we've seen enough. I think he's hit his highest ceiling. I don't know if they'll move on with him next year. I think after this he's probably done. He misses a lot of players. He has an accuracy issue. But again, what questions me a lot is maybe the coach sees something in him that I don't, because they did get A.J. Brown to help him. But also it's just, part of the building the team. So I have Eagles going third. I don't have them going into the playoffs. And last thing is the Giants. They are just horrible. The typical New York team with the New York Jets. We'll see who's the worst New York, record. Would it be the Jets or the Giants? So they did release Joe Judge last year, who was terrible. And actually last year, I believe that he had a job with the Giants moving forward for this year, but decided to do like a final play in a game where it made news and say, what is he doing? Which kind of solidified why he's not as a head coach anymore for the Giants. So it actually exposed how unfit he is to be a head coach. Daniel Dimes, no longer Danny Dimes. He's Danny Pennies now. So it's actually an audition for next year's for backup quarterback. I do not see him having a starting quarterback role after this year. They have a new coach in Brian Dable, so he's there to rebuild the team. So the Giants are just in rebuild mode, so they are 4th.
Oh gosh. All right, Andy, you can go ahead and take this one.
Yeah, I mean, if we're looking at how everything's been happening since last season to this season, I would still have the Cowboys as number 1. And even though they have lost major weapons, in my opinion, with Cooper, even though he didn't play and then he did play, but when he was on the field, he did produce. I mean, he did help win many of those games, and I really like that chemistry that he had with Dak Prescott, but unfortunately, that's gone now. And is there a replacement for him? No, it's not James Washington. I'm sorry, from the wide receiver that they got from the Pittsburgh Steelers, but that is not a good replacement. The only thing that we know right now for the Cowboys is that the Jones family said that they're not done building the team this offseason, but we'll see. I don't know what can they do to make it. I mean, the only thing I'm thinking about is maybe Odell Beckham. That would be really interesting to put him there and play against the Giants, but we shall see there. Now, for number 2, this one's a tough one because the Eagles and Washington are kind of close. And I know that Carson Wentz didn't have a good season with the Colts. He had like a very volatile season. He was playing good and he was playing bad, but he actually gave games away. So that's why the Indianapolis Colts, it's a respectable organization that they're like, we're not going to have this. And Washington were like, okay, well, we'll have him. We'll see what's up. And I mean, I respect Ron Rivera as a coach because he did go to the Super Bowl. But if we look at the quarterback that he had, which is Cam Newton, compared to Carson Wentz, it's a completely different type of quarterback. And the only success that Ron Rivera had with the Panthers was with Cam Newton and in his prime. Before that, the only time that the Panthers had basically like success was with their old head coach John Fox. And when Ron Rivera took the team, if we look at his record, I mean, the only times he had really good seasons was in 2013 when he went 12-4, 2015 when he went to the Super Bowl with 15-1, and then 2017 he went 11-5. After that, in 2018 was 7-9, and 2019 was 5-7 with Carolina. He departed from Carolina. Then he went to Washington, 7-9, which he went to the playoffs. But come on, I mean, nobody was respecting that, even though they they played an okay game against Tampa. And then last year they went again 7 wins only. So that's my problem that I have with them. And the Eagles, my problem is just the quarterback. I mean, if there's some improvement there, I kind of like the Eagles team a little bit more than Washington if I'm looking at the players. Antonio Gibson is Washington's running back, and Miles Sanders is Philadelphia's running back. And I feel like Miles Sanders has shown that he has been able to do more things while catching the ball, being a little bit more lucid than Gibson. And then we have the wide receivers. Terry McLaurin is a really good wide receiver, but then if you compare him with A.J. Brown, that's no question for me. A.J. Brown is a better wide receiver. Devontae Smith is the next wide receiver for Philadelphia, and that came from Alabama. He didn't have like an amazing year, but he did win the Heisman, so hopefully we can see some of those flashes in this year with Philadelphia. And if we compare him to Curtis Samuel, it's not like that much different. Maybe I don't know. I don't know who I would pick there. It's a toss up there, but I would be more excited to see what Devontae Smith has. And then we have Quez Watkins, the third wide receiver from Philadelphia, comparing him to Jahan Dotson. Really, if we don't even look at those wide receivers because no, it's not like none of these two jump off the page. Then in tight end, you have with the Philadelphia Eagles, Dallas Goedert compared to Logan Thomas. They're both good tight ends, but I feel that Dallas Goedert is a little bit more reliable. And then on the offensive line, the Eagles have a decent offensive line with a pro bowler Jason Kelce as the center. And they still have Lane Johnson, which he's going to be a Hall of Famer and the right tackle, compared to the offensive line that Washington Commanders have. I mean, they're building it and it's getting a little bit better, but the loss of Trent Williams, I think it did hurt them. So right now it picks the Eagles second place and Washington in third place because of the reasons I just gave. Washington right now has been having some issues off that I'm not a fan at all when a team has. They have some issues with the owner, some investigation, and then recently we had Coach Ron Rivera fine Jack Del Rio, his defensive coordinator coach, for some political statements that he made. So that's just stuff that just hurts the team, in my opinion. It's just like extra noise that we don't like. So I put Dallas first, Philly second, and Washington third. And the Giants are just in rebuild mode. I mean, Daniel Jones, I don't see him, even though this is gonna be his like make it or break it year as opportunity, he's gonna be kicked out. I don't see him. And they have okay wide receivers with Kenny Golladay, Sterling Shepard, and Kadarius Toney, but no, nothing too amazing. So this team is just, again, they're gonna be one of the first teams to pick in the first round in next year's NFL draft. So it's an easy fourth place for New York Giants. So first Dallas, second Philly, third Washington, and fourth Giants.
That's a good point that you make with the Commanders. I didn't really know about that, but I think with that point, that's really something that the Commanders can't really afford to have right now, because they totally could take command of the second place over the Eagles. And I was going to say something about the Eagles that I was just kind of thinking about right now, that they're kind of in a similar situation like the Dolphins. You know, they got a decent defense. What's it called? They got a decent defense. Their offense is pretty good, and they both got a premier wide receiver. Let me see. You know, with and also the quarterback situation is the same thing. They both started in 2020, and they're going into the third season now. And I think they just both have 2 years left, I think, because they're going to give these guys a chance with, okay, we gave you a premier wide receiver. We give you, wide receivers that can produce for you, basically. And I think with that saying, it's just they're probably going to end up probably being the same way with being a 9-8. But anyways, I'll jump back to them later. Right now, I'm going to talk about first place. That's pretty obvious, Cowboys. And last place, it's Giants. And I think the Cowboys are totally capable of going 9-8 this season, but I also think they're capable of going something like they went last year with 12-5, or 11-6, something along those lines. I think they can totally take over first place without a doubt, especially with their easy schedule, like Yam said. It's just, if they really want to win, they're gonna have to improve from their past mistakes with their whole penalty situation. Just stupid penalties. Stupid clock management, stupid game time decisions with Mike McCarthy. It's just dumb. What happened to this Mike McCarthy break that he was doing? Okay, yeah, I was studying film nonstop. I was practicing, to be different, to be a better coach. Well, I didn't have a position at that time. And, Jerry Jones just does Jerry Jones things and goes out and gets an experienced coach, which is fine. But there was definitely some other options that you could have gone that I think could have probably went better. I don't think Mike McCarthy was the best choice for that job. But, what am I to say, honestly? I mean, I'm just a fan, but that's what I think in that case. So I think
Sounds like you need a Snickers right there.
It's just like, if you start really thinking about these things, it just kind of stacks up on the situations. And they're just things that you could have avoided from the beginning. But they just do what they usually do. They do frustrating decisions that, you could have been better, I guess. I don't know. I feel like they could have maybe handled the Amari Cooper situation better, but at least they got something out of him. They didn't just get, it is kind of chump change, but they didn't get him for nothing, at least. So I think.
Well, the head coaches, it's who you know, really. Mm-hmm. They don't just hire you based on experience. It's who you know.
Well, I mean, the good organizations, I would think that they hire based on experience. Compared to who you know.
It wasn't a terrible hire, but it could have been better.
It was a safe hire.
It was
from
a safe
all of them.
Hire.
Yeah, it was a safe hire. Because look what happened with the Jaguars. I mean, they hired and I
Urban
really want to
Meyer.
forget. Yeah, Urban Meyer. I want to forget his name because that was just a disaster.
Yeah.
And that was just like the Hail Mary coach from college that had so much success in college, even though there was some not like negative baggage with him, but you felt like he can actually turn it around. He's like the go-getter, the new fresh face for the NFL, and it was horrible. It was
A
horrible.
rocky
So
start.
no, it was horrible. And here
The-
with McCarthy, you got the safe bet. You got the coach that went to the Super Bowl. I think it's really bad that he only went to the Super Bowl once, with Aaron Rodgers, and you had also Brett Favre, and you only went once. He did have some success, but I mean, come on, that's just not. I don't know.
Oh
It's
yeah, and you
horrible.
can even call that Super Bowl run like just kind of like Aaron Rodgers kind of carried that team because you
Still
know,
is without anybody's help.
Yeah.
If I have.
but also the Cowboys situation was different from the Jaguars situation, or it is different. You know, Cowboys they're not in rebuild mode, so they weren't gonna get a new coach.
That's what everyone thinks, Aaron. That they're not in rebuild. They've secretly been in rebuild.
I don't think so. I think they don't know how to like patch the holes that open up during the off seasons when they lose, you know, an offensive line that gets weaker. They lose just all kinds of different assets. I just think that it is a different situation from the Jaguars. I'm not gonna hire someone off of college when I have a team that can go to the playoffs because they've gone to the playoffs. That's the thing. The Jaguars, they're not playoff ready. So of course you're gonna go with someone who can possibly be, you know, a gamble that can be amazing or, you know, just sucks. And that was the Urban Meyer hire, and that was fine. They took a gamble and it didn't work out. Fine. It doesn't hurt them that much because they got Trevor Lawrence. He just started. And his first season wasn't all that great. But just give the chance to build that team a little bit more. And now you can think about that kind of situation to get a really good coach and not get some like college coach. I think it was just a different situation. So it's fine that they got Mike McCarthy. I just like, I don't know. It just sucks that it had to be him because he's just not a good coach right now. He like just look at the past seasons. Everything usually went back to Mike McCarthy, and also sometimes even Kellen Moore was in the conversation of just these stupid offensive decisions that they had with their game plans and stuff. Like that clock management with the 49ers. What are you doing? What is that discipline? It's just awful. So that's why I'm saying they could totally be a 12-5 team again, or they can be a 9-8 team. So that's why I'm saying for Cowboys being on first place because they have an easy schedule. So I think they're more likely to get double-digit wins. So they'll be fine in first place, but I'm not completely comfortable with that as a fan. And then I'll put probably it's just really hard to determine right now with the Commanders and Eagles. But if I had to go with the overall safe bet, I think the Commanders simply because they have a better defensive line overall. The Eagles have an aging defense in some spots, you know, with Graham and Fletcher Cox as well. That is just kind of iffy, you know, but they do have Darius Slay, which is fine. Their secondary is okay. It's not anything that crazy. That's what I'm saying. Like it's kind of like a Miami situation as well. They have a star cornerback. They have a quarterback who's in question for the future. They went out and got a big time wide receiver, and they got all kinds of running backs that could work for them or not. So that's why I'm like, it could really go either way. And if I'm not mistaken, I think, oh my gosh, I'm trying to see. They went 9-8 as well. The Eagles went 9-8 as well. They're just basically the same team. So it's just kind of like they could be really good, but it's gonna come down really to the quarterback. And it's a tough question to even know who I trust more, Jalen Hurts or Tua. But you know, that's another time. But I think I would probably I would probably go Commanders second just to be safe. You know, with Carson Wentz, I think he has a chance to be good, and maybe they can go. I don't know. I have no clue with that quarterback situation. It's just iffy, but he could be great because they have a good coach. But I'm gonna put them second, and then I'll put the Eagles not that far off, probably like a 2-win gap type of scenario. And then, I mentioned the Giants, their rebuild probably best player is Saquon Barkley, and that's even like, we don't even know anymore because he hasn't played in forever. And it's just kind of like we just have to see what happens with them. And there's just so many problems with those guys. I don't even want to bother looking at them. They got years to go. So, yeah, those are my rankings. So I think the Cowboys would probably go to the playoffs, and I think the Commanders would probably get a wild card spot.
I agree. I see where you're kind of conflicted between the Commanders and Eagles. I can see it. But where I would lean more towards is Commanders, just because I feel that Carson Wentz is a much better quarterback than Jalen Hurts.
You can't forget about the off-field stuff that's going on behind the scenes. What Andy was saying, that matters too. That's not something that you can just go like, it's whatever, they'll be fine. It can affect,
especially when it's coaching.
Yeah, like relationships, it could just be, it's not comfortable there anymore. They just have so much going on right now internally, and it's not really a good time for that to happen. And that might affect their chance to prove that they're going to be a good team now, and they might take over the NFC East. This is their opportunity. They can't risk this happening. But yeah, I mean, the whole Carson Wentz situation, we just have to see with them. He does have great weapons with the running backs, multiple running backs, J.D. McKissick and Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin, like an insane wide receiver as well. Curtis Samuel's pretty good. I think it's just a good offensive team, and they could probably produce more than the Eagles, I think.
A lot of these teams have and it can be a topic for another day, but they have a lot of these teams that are just make it or break it quarterback years. And because there's some quarterbacks that are coming out next year, and it's just, it might be, I don't know if it's too early for Jalen Hurts, but if they don't show anything, including Tua, it might be the time to like just move on from them and just start with a new one, because these teams like Miami, and also, I mean, I wouldn't put the Eagles that far away. They don't have a bad team at all. It might mean that they just need a better quarterback, and they're just ready to go and win some games in order to go to the Super Bowl. They're really close, and it might be the time to just change it. I know that with the rookie quarterback, you're not going to go to the Super Bowl, but I mean, at least you're not like prolonging it even longer, just dragging on a quarterback that you know is not going to get you there. Look what happened with the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow. In his second year, he went to the Super Bowl. So don't tell me like it cannot happen. It is completely possible. Mac Jones went to the playoffs too in the AFC. So it is completely possible. So I just think that these quarterbacks need to really, really try and show something this year.
Yep. Yeah, there's plenty of them, but you also have to think about, okay, so what happens if you want to get rid of them? That situation's kind of iffy as well. There's not that many teams that you could say that could be like, oh, I could get them right away, because what if they ask for like, too much? Then
look what Jimmy Garoppolo happened with the second rounder for the 49ers. That was a great deal for the 49ers. A second round for Jimmy Garoppolo, and they went to the Super Bowl and almost went to the Super Bowl last year. I know they haven't won, and the whole point is to win a Super Bowl. But, I mean, you can figure things out with these quarterbacks. And then ego happens like, oh, this coach doesn't know what he's doing. I can do it. Can't you see these flashes that this quarterback has? I can make him better. I know his system. I can figure things out with him.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm sure there's going to be some quarterbacks. I mean, maybe even the Browns are going to have to, even though they're in a sticky situation, they're going to have to trade their picks in order to get one of these quarterbacks and just, I don't know, save some momentum to be able to win some games, because they're not going to have Watson, and then Mayfield might be gone already. They're just looking for a suitor at this moment, I would say. So, yeah, I mean, and then again, you have these quarterbacks that are going to be ready in the next year's draft. I mean, you have the Ohio State quarterback, C.J. Stroud. You have Alabama quarterback, Bryce Young. You have the Kentucky quarterback, Will Levis, I believe that's how you say his name, and Tyler Van Dyke from Miami. I mean, and then we might even see others that, depending on how they play this season. So it's going to be a good quarterback, a draft next year. So it's going to be very interesting how these quarterbacks like shine and go to the moment, because they do have the weapons around them.
Mm-hmm. Maybe. I think the Giants have a good opportunity to get rid of Daniel Jones and pick up one of those guys.
I feel so sorry for any quarterback that goes to the Giants at this point. There's no weapons there, like seriously. And no, it's horrible.
The only good thing right now, well, I guess we had to see, but Brian Dable, we'll have to see how he puts his team stamps.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean,
Very true.
there's some promise on there with the head coach.
The thing is that GM as well, though. We have to figure out what the thing with the GM.
Yeah,
you were gonna say something, Aaron.
They're improving their offensive line. That's what I was gonna say. I feel like that was a good step to what they had in this draft.
They had a good draft. I would say that. Yes.
And they picked up also Matt Breida, which isn't a terrible second string running back at all. I just noticed that. I think that was pretty good. But that offensive line, it's looking like they're going in that direction, and they're gonna be interested in getting a quarterback, because I think their patience is running really thin with Daniel Jones. And I don't know where that guy's going, but I think he might even be a backup to some other team. But we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. I mean, Joe. I'll give him that. Joe Schoen, the Giants general manager, he did have a good draft. He does come from good success being an assistant general manager for the Buffalo Bills, and the Buffalo Bills have building a really good team, and they already have a good team. So, I mean, he does have the experience. So, I just don't like what they have currently right now for a new rookie quarterback, but we'll see.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they clearly were focusing on the offensive line and defensive line, so they know what they're doing, I think. And it's just, I'm just worried as a Dallas fan that their time is gonna run out, and one of these teams is just gonna take over and be maybe like just the better overall NFC East team. And they just need to do something now. And I just don't know what it is at this point. There's sort of like, it could be anything at this point. But I think that for sure one of the problems is in the coaching staff. And it could be both Mike McCarthy and Kellen Moore, or it could be one of the two. I don't know. But I think the defense is fine. I think I could see them getting out some in the future, like some defensive stars that could maybe go into free agency. And it's just they have to do something. They have to do something because they're running out of time.
Yeah, we'll see. Always good to talk about the NFC East, or least, however you want to call them.
Yams says otherwise.
Yeah, I think we should move on from the Cowboys. Let the news handle it. We already have enough.
Well, maybe we haven't heard from them in a while.
Time. Yeah, maybe it's a good topic for next time.
Are they starting to be irrelevant?
They're starting to be relevant, irrelevant. Should we stop calling them America's team? Like, what's up? It's all branding.
I don't think Yams is down for that, so. Yeah.
I think it should be somebody else. Somebody else's team. We should move on.
As long as it's not the Eagles, I'm fine. That's all I'm going to say. I'd rather have the Commanders or Giants, in my opinion. That's it.
Yeah, we'll see.
All right. So, yeah, that's going to be it for this episode. Do you guys have anything else to say?
No?
No, just check us out on Instagram at football_tailgaters. We constantly post there. And little by surely, we're going to be in YouTube more and TikTok. And just give us your comments. If there's some topics that you guys want to discuss, let us know.
All right. Sounds good. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Football Tailgaters. And until next time, thank you guys for listening again.
Thank you.
Bye.